Hello my friends, and welcome to Strategic Command, the AAR, if you will. I've decided that I'm going to fold the campaign because I see where it's going. But I want to go through everything first before I fold. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not 100% folding because it's a lost cause, because I don't think it's entirely a lost cause. But I think it's going to become an ugly stalemate. And I'll explain why now. So basically, I think Russia is going to lose, and that's partly because of mistakes on my part. I thought that Russia might receive reinforcements when they historically did their armoured counterattack, but it seems like you actually have to build those yourself. And what I really should have done was build a fortification line here to prevent this from being cut off, or potentially here. This is quite close to Germany. To be honest, this holds out for so long. Put a real unit there, like an army, and it would probably hold out even longer. Either way, I should probably maybe have built fortifications here, and then potentially just along this river. All the way up to Moscow. And then we don't want to allow Leningrad to get surrounded, so we probably want to build fortifications here. Once again, following the river to here, and then down, and then across. To do that, we'd want to purchase an extra set of engineers early on, so that we can immediately start that process of building these fortifications. In fact, it may even be wise to build fortifications here. And then along. Because this will definitely be lost. But building fortifications here and here would allow any unit that moved here to be shot at by on three sides. So this might become a great little meat grinder for killing enemies. And then you run a defensive fortification along here, while the other engineer builds across here. And it should be complete in time. So basically, Russia is going to fall. China is going to fall early due to some errors on my part revolving around the eastern part. And I probably evacuated from Nanjing. I probably evacuated from there too early. I probably should have tried to hold on to that for longer. But I don't think that the artillery and anti-aircraft gun strategy was wrong. It really helped a lot. The main issue was actually burning lots and lots and lots of MPPs on the fighters. And that's the biggest issue, is those fighters are just constantly draining your money. I think you'd be better off just building anti-aircraft guns and forgetting about the fighters. We probably burnt probably like 500-600 points just constantly repairing the fire, which seemingly always took more damage than the enemy did, whereas the anti-aircraft guns never took any damage and eventually started killing planes. If they'd have been upgraded instead of fighters, they could have done so much more. Okay, so anyway, those two fronts are they're the negative ones. The biggest issue with this campaign which is why I am throwing in the towel on it, is that Spain joined the war. Now, if you look at Italy's national morale, it's 68%. So their morale has been very badly damaged. And they have lost, or they will lose. Very soon they will lose their position. In North Africa. They can't hold on. There's just no way for them to hold on. In fact, I will even show the point now. Look, you can see. Oof. The damage is piling on, and this port is embargoed. It's got a supply value of 1, which means that these guys are losing supply fast. So, there goes Rommel. Goodbye, Rommel. You completely failed in this endeavor. Okay, and that is this is it for this region. There's no way that that the Italian troops here will hold. Look at this friggin' strategic bomber took damage from bombing a defenseless town. And again, it's part of this game that I really find frustrating, is taking damage all the time. But yeah, anyway, look, the city's got 1 supply, soon to be 0. Next turn, they fall. North Africa falls. The campaign here is complete. But since Spain joined, I cannot move the forces that I've been building. In an ideal world, I would want to load up these forces in transports and begin the invasion of Italy. But because Spain joined the war, like, never mind the fact that they're delivering several hundred MPPs to Germany every turn, which is hugely boosting their economy. Even if you ignore that aspect of it, this makes it impossible for me to follow up on Italy, which just basically means that I don't attack Italy. And so, the short story is that Europe will be lost. But, because of the events of Pearl Harbor, Japan has no hope of actually winning the battle in the sea. And now it's basically time for me to load up my special forces here into transports. I think the other one is already loaded. And these, you know, these guys will be able to just... I'm pretty sure that these islands are undefended. Okay. Look at this. Localized rain to save their carrier. Unless I pushed it out. Unless I find some way to push it out of the port. Yeah, so there's nothing that Japan can do to stop me from taking everything. All the islands. Let's go here to avoid landing penalties. There we go. And then I'll just take this one and do the same. Take this one. This carrier is imminently sinkable. The last vestiges of a fleet that is on the bottom of the ocean. I suppose that localized rain shower prevents it from defending itself too. Or not. Well, whatever the case may be, it's a case of I can just set these carriers to air support. Set a couple of these carriers to air support, set the others to bombers, park here, and as soon as the rain clears, we can just bomb this carrier into the dirt. The fighters should prevent the battleships from going down, but I mean, the US has got so much navy, and the Japanese have lost all of theirs. So eventually, we would just push here, take. Following the islands, take these, take this, and then finally take this, and then we would be sat on top of Japan, and we could start attacking their ports and isolating them. But all that time, with Russia falling and China falling, and once again with Spain and Portugal now on the Axis side, effectively, Germany is just going to get wealthier and wealthier and bigger and wealthier and so on. And what will happen is they won't be able to invade the UK because of the navy, and they won't be able to save Japan because of the navy. So the naval wars will be won, especially with Mexico joining. The naval wars will be won, Japan will fall, Germany will then take China as well, because once Japan surrenders, that territory will be available for taking, and they'll take it, and they'll probably even end up taking India. And I won't be able to do anything about it, because they'll be rich beyond imagining. But they won't be able to do anything about me because of the immense navies that I have. And this all comes about because of this situation where Spain joins the Axis, which then triggers the US to go early, which tips the balance of the war against Europe on the ground, but towards the Allies in the sea. And it's just, I feel like that's going to become a very, very, very tedious game. And I don't know how the game is going to... I mean, the game has probably got another 30 turns to go. 30-ish. 35 turns to go. I don't know how the game will interpret that. But I think it's going to be, rather than the historical defeat of the Axis, it's going to be a draw, where the UK survives, the US obviously is untouchable, Japan falls as expected, but China also falls, and the USSR falls, and the invasion of Italy just cannot happen because of Spain. And don't get me wrong, I made mistakes in Russia, definitely, because I didn't really understand how the game was going to work, and also at this difficulty which units actually work. Because some units at the higher level of difficulty just don't seem to have much, if any, effect. Once again, it's snowing on my turn. Tanks seem to be the only thing that I can build that have some kind of reasonable expectation of winning battles without costing me a fortune. Or, you know, fights where the difference between the two is immense. Like, these guys have only got 13% morale and I have 80%. I have 11 supply and they have 3. And I have 77% readiness and they have 57. But I am attacking across a river, but that should only be a small penalty. Yeah, if only I knew how this was going to work out, I would have fortified this area and maybe bled less units. But it was fun. It was a very interesting campaign, but I think at this point it's decided. And now it's going to just drag on. So, it's going to be that Russia falls and China falls to the Axis, and the Axis owns the main continent. But Japan will fall to the US because the US has overwhelming power because they joined the war so early, and the entire Japanese fleet was sunk. And it will take time. This is the thing, there's only about 30 turns left in the game, so it will, based on the fact that we're in 1942 now, unless the timeline slows down as the war drags on, there's enough time for the US to take Japan. But there isn't enough time to fix the situation in Spain. And the British being unable to unify their forces just kind of ruins everything. So honestly, when Spain joined the Axis and I said game over, that pretty much was true. But I wanted to play it out a bit more to see if there was something I could do to change the outcome. But I don't think that there is. I think this just... Especially when I started seeing the whole Spanish army turning up here as well. It's the addition of the extra troops and all the extra money and mistakes that I made in Russia because I tried to play out this front historically instead of playing the game. I tried to play the history instead of playing the game. But then, this is my first time ever playing this game, so it's one of them. It's like I've learnt a huge amount from playing the game, so I'm not so bothered that it's going to end up in an ahistorical draw. But anyway, that's it for the campaign. I don't think it's worth fighting on. I think it's just going to be... It's already feeling not fun. Because I think it's just going to end up with, as I said, the US is untouchable, the UK is untouchable, North Africa becomes untouchable. But China and the USSR fall. And that will be the end state. Because the game played out ahistorically. But most of my issues come from, and most of the issues of this, as I said, I freely admit, definitely tactical errors made on my part based on the fact that I didn't really understand the game, how the game would play out mechanically, especially in China. But the biggest thing is Spain joining the war, which is totally RNG, and that's, for me, this is a great game apart from this aspect. It's really disappointing to me that just, you know, the diplomacy system is very RNG, and if you RNG out getting Spain to join the war, this immediately severs the connection between the UK and North Africa, which is really, you know, not particularly historical, because I don't see how Gibraltar stops ships from sailing past if they want to. And for, you know, bizarrely, I mean, the Axis are allowed to sneak their ships past, but you're not allowed to do the same when Gibraltar gets captured. So this uniquely and somewhat unfairly hurts the Allies. Yeah, I can't, you know, obviously I can't bring the armies down here to assist in the attack on Italy. Italy could very much fall if things had gone historically. With the extra British troops in transports, They can just be shipped from Blighty to North Africa now that it's taken, or it will be taken in a turn or two. And then once here, landings can be made and Italy can be surrounded by the fleet and just beaten down. And that's, I mean, that's a reasonable game plan. That is, okay. That would probably work out, but it's not going to work out because Spain joined the Axis, and that's going to lead to this not particularly interesting stalemate, where the ocean is absolutely dominated by the Allies, and the Germans will never be able to touch it, but the main continent falls to the Axis. But I am very interested in playing this again. There are many things that I would do differently. Maybe not too many things, but a few things. Yeah. So that's it for now. I feel like it's a foregone conclusion. I kind of lost my will to play this game from this point on. There's a huge amount I learned and a huge amount that I would change. You know, this is a sad thing to say, but based on the mechanics of the game, the only way to stop Spain from joining the Axis, because, you know, we did put 3 diplomacy chits in and it didn't make any difference. The only way to realistically stop it from happening is to just save scum your turns, replay your turns. If every time the Germans are diplomatically successful in Spain, you'd have to just replay the turn and hope that they weren't successful, then, you know, when you replayed. Because this kills your ability to project power into Europe. It's nice that the game allows for historical outcomes, but it would be better if at least it came from some mistakes on your part. If you did things that provoked Spain into the war. But as it stands, the diplomacy system is just RNG. You put points in, and eventually you get opinion change out. But I don't think that Switzerland or Ireland will join the war at any moment in the near future. And I'm not even really sure what Ireland has to offer, if I'm honest. It doesn't have any resources, so this may produce only 5, 6, 12, 18, and 25 on top. Ireland barely produces 50 MPPs. So, getting Ireland to join the war gives you an extra 50 MPPs to play with, which is nice, but doesn't really change anything. Switzerland would be interesting just because it's really annoyingly positioned and could immediately hit objectives in Italy, which would cause the morale cascade failure that causes Italy to leave the war and switch sides early. But you know, once again, we can't take advantage of it because of Spain joining the war. But hey, I enjoyed playing out the game, but I think the results are set in stone now. I can't stop the Germans from getting the oil. And once they have the oil, they'll have the money to to just produce whatever they want. And that will be enough to seal the fate of the land. But then if I play diligently, they'll never get into the sea, because I'll just sink everything that comes out of their ports. There's no way to invade any of the island nations. So anyway, that's it for the campaign. I'm gonna fold this one. Maybe I'll play it again and make some very different decisions. But there's no, for me, I don't think I would enjoy playing another 30 turns on a foregone conclusion. So, yeah, it's a draw. Or it would be a draw. What else is there to say? Just kind of... I think the land-based part of the game is much better than the sea-based part of the game, and that's partly what you know, makes me dread playing on, is just playing a game where you're just hunting down ships all the time. But there is another Strategic Command game called War in Europe that I believe is just Europe. So maybe that would be more up my alley. But maybe I'll hit this again, because I would like to win it very decisively. And I feel like we were winning on every front for a long time. I thought everything was going great until Spain joined the war. So that's really disappointing. Anyway, once again, hope you guys enjoyed it. And thanks again to the Patreon sponsors for sponsoring it. And I will see you guys next time.